Thank you for your patience. My name is Lisa Markovitz with the People's Voice, and we'd like to thank the Elbridge Library and staff for helping us out tonight. We'd like to thank the Howard County Citizens Association, HCCA, for co-sponsoring this forum with us. The People's Voice is a civic and political organization. HCCA is just a civic organization. And we will be sponsoring the ethics ballot, which is, this is not a endorsement forum. We'll be sending our questionnaires out in early March. So this is just a general forum for everyone. I'd like to thank the candidates. We all know how incredibly busy you are, and your campaign schedule is extremely, extremely busy. And so being here tonight, everyone is just so appreciated. So thank you so much for that. There's room there on the tables for candidate information, if people want to check that out. We also have information over there on the HCCA and the People's Voice if you want to find out more about our organizations. There are sheets of paper over there for you to fill out if you want to ask questions of the candidates. A very large portion of tonight's timing is taking questions from you all. The way we're going to have our logistics here is each candidate will be given 2 minutes to get an introduction, and then they will have a question from the People's Voice and a question from HCCA. They will respond to that in 1 minute. And then after those questions are finished, we will start taking questions from the audience. Now, we will collect these and just very briefly take out duplicates and keep things running smoothly. And time permitting, we'll get to as many of your questions as we can. I actually was asked earlier today by someone I know who works at the Board of Elections to make an announcement tonight. As you know, there is a congressional election in District 7 for really Elijah Cummings' seat. And in District 1, there's no overlap there. And what I've been told is that because District 1 Board of Ed does not technically have a primary because 2 people move through to the general election, that unaffiliated voters who are not in District 7 do not have a Board of Ed ballot. They don't want to actually create those ballots when it's the only thing that would be in it, and there's no race. So please go to the polls in the primary and vote in District 1. If you are in District 7, you will have, if you're an unaffiliated voter, you will have the option to vote. Even though the 2 candidates will be moving through, it's still great to vote, show your support, let them have some feedback. So please vote. And just don't panic if you go there and you're not in District 7 for congressional and you don't get a ballot. You don't have to worry that there was an actual decision to make there. So I was asked to tell people that and publicize that as much as possible. So without further ado, I would like to thank Brent Loveless for videotaping and helping with me tonight. And also Stu Cohn, the president of HCCA, is going to be moderating this evening. So thanks again. We are live streaming on the People's Voice Ethics Ballot Facebook page, and we will be posting a video of this forum as well. And we also will be doing that from last night's video, which was District 4 and 5 last night at Miller Library. So thank you again. And if anybody has any questions about what I was talking about before, feel free to ask me later. And thank you, Stu.
Thank you, Lisa, and I appreciate very much everyone being here. I'm Stu Cohn, the president of the Howard County Citizens Association, and we are very proud to be associated with the People's Voice tonight. Last night, as Lisa said, we had an outstanding group of people. The audience was well behaved. What are y'all laughing? That's all right. So, and I know that this audience will also be extremely well behaved. And I want to tell the candidates that, as I told the candidates last night, and we mean this sincerely, you all should be extremely proud of yourselves because you all are all winners. There's no question about it. The courage of your conviction to be standing or sitting right now and answering these questions and being a part of something that you definitely believe in and are extremely passionate about. So as far as we're concerned, I don't really care if you lose because you can look at the mirror, because you can look at the mirror and say to yourself that you all are winners. So we want to thank you from that standpoint. So unfortunately, in this room, there is no clock. So we're going to finish at 10 of 8, 10 after 8 will be the last question. And then we'll go from there, and then we'll have closing. We have a timekeeper, Leslie, and in fact, what's going to happen is you're going to have opening 2 minutes. We will ask you to state what you're all about, why you're running, what's your qualifications, and obviously we have your districts on the card. Tell the audience what district you're from. You're going to have, as I say, 2 minutes, and after 1 minute and 45 seconds, a yellow card is going to come up, and after that, in 2 minutes, a red card will come up. You can finish your sentence, maybe a couple words, but I got to tell you, as I did last night, we're not going to have you go over time. Then after that, we'll have questions from the audience. You'll have 1 minute to answer these questions, and after 45 seconds, the yellow card will come up, and again, after a minute, the red card will come up. So we're going to start out, just Honey Small. Tell the audience who you are, why you're running, and what you're all about, and go from there. And just pass the mic down to them.
Good evening. My name is Christina Delmont Small, and I am running in District 1. I'm currently on the Board of Education. The reason I'm running is because I feel as though there's a lot more work to be done. There are a lot of important decisions that the board needs to make, and I am very invested in the community. I've been an advocate since my children joined the Howard County Public School System. I'm looking forward to having dialogues with the community and understanding what your concerns are, and also try to help make sure that you are involved and that your voices are heard. Because there are many different ways for you to come and be heard, but I think the school system and the board can always do much better when it comes to communication. Because if we don't do well in communication, we're not going to really do well in other areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And first, thank you to the People's Voice and to HCCA for having this forum. I'm Matthew Molliet. I'm running for Board of Education from District 1. It's nice that tonight is in Alfred. My time with Howard County Schools started out right here as a parent of Duckett's Lane Elementary School. As a father, I'm concerned about the long-term success and stability of our community schools. And these community schools and the Board of Education, they operate on and through numerous broken processes. These are processes that endanger student health, they waste taxpayer dollars, and they compromise the student academic achievement that we send our kids there for. As a local tech professional, identifying, correcting, and optimizing processes is what I do. So tonight, I'm hoping that I can earn your support for Howard County Board of Education from District 1. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is James Cecil. I'm running in District 2. I too would like to thank our sponsors, the People's Voice and HCCA. Also, thank you to the Eldridge Library for hosting us. It is a much different experience to be in the library without having to listen to my kids running through. So I'm grateful to hear that participants are well behaved. That is a welcome change for me. So on my running, so I've dedicated my entire 17-year career at the University of Maryland to student development and education and preparing my students for success after graduation. Closer to home, I'm an ACPSS parent with 2 kids at Rockland Elementary. I've been advocating for children with special needs like my son and for those currently underserved by our system. Education is extremely important to me, and to make sure that all children have the very best they need to succeed. Unfortunately, too many children in our system do not have those opportunities or those resources available to them. They're not able to attend adequate facilities, and their teachers do not have the resources in the classroom that they need to be successful. Our system is broken. Our children suffer the longer the status quo is allowed to continue, and I want to help break that cycle.
Good evening, I'm Larry Pretlow II. I'm a proud father and community advocate. I serve on the Oakland Mills Community Association, where we value connections and we value community input. I work daily as a community organizer to get out and engage families in our community who believe they've been forgotten because they live in the apartment section of the community. I have 10 years management experience working in the retail and security industry, managing employees, managing payroll, evaluating employees, and making sure that I adhere to an operating budget. Some folks want you to think that I'm some self-serving politician, but I'm not. I'm a community man, a parent that cares about the progress that we make in District 2. And for too long, we've been misrepresented and counted out. And I've been in this race early on to make sure that all of us in District 2 are counted in. Because my son and I, we are that family that so many people want to help. And most important thing that you want to do when you want to help us is come to where we are and ask us, what do we need in our community? So I'm running because if we want to put Howard County Public Schools back on top, it starts with the work that we must do to propel District 2 forward. And I'm the guy to do it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Antonia Watts, and I just want to say right now I have a cold. So I'm going to do my best to kind of talk through it, and any coughing fits, I'll try to have some tea or something, okay? And maybe I should have my own mic, because otherwise you guys my name is Antonia Watts, and I'm running for Board of Education in District 2. And I'm running because I think that there is an urgent need for us to provide a quality education for all students in the community who often do not have access to this. And I started my career off as an engineer in crash and safety testing. I was good at my job. I could take massive amounts of data, analyze that data, and then come up with solutions that were cost-effective and innovative with that data. And sure, it was school crashing cars for a living, right? But I wasn't passionate about it. At the same time, though, I was running a tutoring program from the NAACP, and I loved it. I loved it. I loved working with young people. I loved talking to them about critical thinking and problem solving. I loved it so much that I quit my job as an engineer. I went back to school and got a master's in education and became a classroom teacher. And since then, I have always dedicated myself to public education. I serve on the board of trustees for the library system, whose mission is public education for all. And for the past 7 years, I realized that it is important. It's important to have an educator in the room who can speak to what's happening at the classroom level. And this is what I'm aiming to do. I'm aiming to take my engineering background, that analytical background, combine that with my board experience, and then add to that the underlying understanding of what's happening at the classroom level, and to serve those that are often not represented in the conversation. Thank you. Jolene told me she's a germaphobe, so here we go.
Should we go alphabetical order? Should he go first?
Makes no difference.
It doesn't matter.
This is informal, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Hello? Hi, I'm so happy to see all these people here, right? This is very important to me because I have been a community advocate for the schools for a long time. I currently live in D3. I've lived there most of my adult life. I've bounced into D2 a little bit, but most of my adult life I've been in District 3. I currently have 4 children. 2 are in District 2 schools, actually 3, high school and middle school. I've done a lot of things throughout the years. I started off my community GT Parent Academy representation. And then I moved on to also add Howard County Parents at School music representation. Music is very important to me because I feel like that is a space that can be an absolutely inclusive environment where everyone has a role, everyone is part of the whole. And I'm pretty passionate of supporting the music movement. I was a Lego League coach for a few years, and we dealt with a small feed problem with that because my team was students from 2 different middle schools that had gone to elementary school together, and that transition through a small feed was difficult for them, so we maintained some regularity with having our first Lego League. I have been on policy committee revision teams. I am a member of the Oakland Mills Education Village Board, even though I don't live in Oakland Mills because the education is important to me. I am the vice chair of the Community Advisory Council, which is called CAC, and through that I am also on the OBRC, which is the Operation Budget Review Committee. I am volunteer in the classroom, I volunteer on field trips, and I provide transportation services. You'll learn more about me soon. Okay.
How's everyone doing tonight? I'd like to thank our sponsors, the Elkridge Library, and the community for coming out tonight. I am John Alfeo. I'm running for D3. I've lived in D3 since 1989. I grew up in these schools of Howard County, and my kids are going through the schools of Howard County. I have been in the military since 1999. Got out in 2014. I was a sergeant when I left. I was a leader of troops. I was in my civilian life, a supervisor on a government contract in charge of 25 officers. From there, I've now transitioned over to a different contract where I'm now another officer. The reason why I'm running for the Board of Education is I've been here since 1989. I've been watching our schools ever since going backwards. We are making poor decisions, we are spending poorly, and we are cutting from classrooms, yet we are giving budget increases to our administration. That doesn't make sense to me. Our job should be to teach our children and not be sitting there wasting money on budget increases for sections that don't make sense, i.e. the transportation section for a county that has no buses. We're talking about cutting GT, special education, and music from the classroom, and yet we haven't been giving our special education the resources they needed already. I know this for a fact, because my son's special education, it was already a fight to get him just his 504, and it's sad when you know that you're never going to get an IEP in this county because they're going to tell you there's no budget to get your son the resources they need. I'm here to change that, and I want to get everything together and moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you all. If anyone else has questions that you've written, Barbara will go around and, thank you. Okay, now we have, there'll be two different questions. One, both of them are from the co-sponsoring organization, People's Voice and HCCA. So, Jan, I'd like for you to go first on this question, and then just pass it down the line, okay? You're going to have 1 minute to answer these questions. Here's the question, sir. Last year, the board's proposed budget only reduced the requested budget by a small amount. Hard choices had to be made when it came back from the county. The impacts are still being felt. Would you present an aspirational budget asking for all possible covered needs? If not, why not? What would you prioritize and how in a budget with the county executive? Try to be as specific as possible. Thank you.
What I would try to do is, instead of cutting from classrooms, cut from administration, see what we can do with that money to fund everything we need. As far as priority, we're going to have to try to get everything as best as possible, equally across the board. I know special education needs a big boost. We've taken a lot out. We're looking at increasing class sizes, which is the wrong direction. So we're gonna have to try to fund at least special education, GT, and music, and we gotta go from there. We gotta find the money from cutting elsewhere, not the classrooms, the administration. That's the best we're gonna have to do.
Hello? My gosh, just. As part of the OBRC, I've learned a lot and dug deep into the budget. And I think that we are seeing a lot of spaces held for certain things, and I think considering that information is very important when looking at the budget. The other issues that I think we need to work on, particular as a collaborative effort between the board and the county council and the county executive and the state even, is to really talk about honestly what our school system needs. Do we have programs that we cut just a little bit and are on the cusp of going away? Or can they handle a little bit of that cut and still provide what they're providing to the students? Are there programs that we need to phase in over time? I would like to see planning of increasing back the class size to lower it back. You can have your
She's contaminated.
You're my friend.
Okay. So the first thing you asked is about an aspirational budget. I think presenting an aspirational budget really does let you know the needs of your system, right? They are big, and we needed to see that number. However, we are part of a whole county. I believe education is super important. I know our county and our community needs a big amount of money, but we also need fire and rescue and sanitation department as well. And so I think we need to start the conversation by having a priorities conversation. Everyone's coming to the table with different priorities, and we're not on the same page as a county. And so I'd really love to see us start there, start by prioritizing what we value as a community, as a county, and then work our way from there.
So I agree. We have to be more accountable in working together. And as you said, yes, a collaborative effort between the Board of Education, the County Council, and the constituency. There has to be accountability to every dollar that we spend so that we maximize on the dollars that we're spending before we look to have to ever increase the school budget, because increasing the school budget impacts the taxes, and when we impact the taxes, we impact the families in District 2, like my family, who is a low-income family, and so if I have to pay more taxes, then I struggle a little bit more to provide for my son. There's a lot of families like that in District 2. So, yeah, the budget has to be something inspirational as well, but it has to meet every need of every child, and it has to be something that gets the job done as opposed to just serving the benefit of the politicians who think they know what we need in District 2.
Sure, so looking at aspirational budget, I struggle with the term aspirational in general. When I look at it, that is a budget of what we feel like we have to have. It shouldn't be considered aspirational when we know what we need in the classrooms to support our children. So labeling it aspirational, I kind of struggle with that. That is what we need. Aspirational is when we dig into what's not included in that budget. And we're not talking about shiny toys. We're talking about special education teachers, our paraeducators. We're not even talking about materials of instruction, which have slid so far off the budget platform. They're not even included in most budget proposals. They're in the addendum of what they need to make it. There's another $60 million worth of requests that don't make it into the budget request. So we need to be mindful of that. We need to present what we need as a system before we can ever talk about getting it, before we can get into advocacy with the county to collaborate.
let's look at having the timekeeping going, reading the question, because we can't answer something in 1 minute if it takes that long to convey the problem. That said, the school budget needs to accurately reflect the needs that the school has determined, along with communicating to the county what is needed by the school system. We need to ensure that it's fully defended. When we write down the amount that the school needs, we need to be justifying every line of it. We need to be able to prove that we have reviewed that and ensured that that line is what we need. There's no way that we can better spend the money as a school because we've already addressed that. And then the budget needs to reflect the needs. Thank you.
The first problem is the budget process is broken. We make a budget without even knowing how much money we have to spend. What happened last year and what I'm hoping is not going to happen this year is that we're going to be in a mad rush in May when we have to get rid of millions and millions of dollars out of that budget. I've asked the superintendent to provide for the board, have his staff experts tell us their prioritization of what we need to spend and in what order, so that when the budget does come back, we know how we can spend, how the board can make decisions so that we impact student learning in the classroom as little as possible. We need to fix the budget process. We need to figure out how to do this in a way that makes sense. Because right now, this is not working. We cannot start slashing and slashing and slashing without understanding the unintended consequences. Those are the consequences that we're feeling now for what we did last year.
Thank you all. The next question, and Matthew, you're going to start first on this one. Just 1 minute, sorry. Question is, what do you believe are the positives and negatives of the recent redistricting decision? Whether you are a current board member or a new candidate, what would you have done differently, if anything?
The negatives are clear in that it has left the community whiplashed, uncomfortable, and just generally disappointed with the way the process had laid out. Right at the time when the community needed to be providing specific input into how to refine the plan, the board was still attempting to define a plan. And the community couldn't identify what individual small tweaks were needed because there wasn't a plan. There were 2 feasibility studies, there was consultants brought in, and then it was all just completely left behind while the handful of board members created something. And up until the vote was taken, you couldn't see what it was because there wasn't a plan until then. That process needs correcting.
So I think all of us could look, we've known as a county that we have a significant capacity issue as a county. And as we look at capital improvement and how we're going to build out of a capacity issue, there's no path to building our way out, at least within the next decade that I've seen. And so redistricting has to be part of that process to bring capacity into alignment. In terms of how we did it, nightmare in my way to keep it under a minute. But in terms of what we could be doing, we took the community out of the early part of the process. We need to bring people back in early. We know in 2023 we're going to open, hopefully, a new high school with potential down the line for renovations and a new elementary school. We need to start those processes now. We need to start engaging communities now. It was not a surprise in 2019 that we had to redistrict. It sure seemed like it at different points, but we need to start planning now so that we don't end up in those same problems again next time.
So for me, I believe that we need to focus on capacity, feed size, and distance. For example, Polygon 96 is in Oakland Mills, where I live in Polygon 1110. And both those polygons are the same community, the same apartment community. And so what we saw happen to Polygon 96 is that it sits right next, in line with Talbot Springs. The next closest school is Stevens Forest, where those students go now. What this fiasco did was send them across 175 to go to Thunder Hill, a school that shouldn't even be a factor when it comes to the convenience. And I think the role of redistricting is to make sure that we keep education, so learning and getting to school and parental involvement has to be done and provided for conveniently. And the process left us out, didn't count us in, didn't get our feedback, and pushed some of our kids across 175 to have to walk a further distance to go to school.
So this is the moment where I give a shout out to my realtor. She made sure that when we were searching for a home, that I was fully educated on this possibility. She talked to me about how the neighborhood was set up, how Columbia was built, and she told me that she could actually see a school that her kids didn't go to from her deck. And I think a lot of my friends, my mom's group, we were talking about this, were kind of caught off guard by this. So I don't know if we've done a good job of educating our community about this process, about how things are going to go when we're looking at this. And I think you'll hear this again and again. The process that we used for redistricting was awful. It left a lot of people angry. There were Facebook posts flying around. People were commenting and screenshotting, and it just tore us apart as a community. And I think we just really did ourselves a disservice by not being transparent with the process, by informing our community of what's happening, and by making sure that everybody, in District 2 especially, I'm hearing a lot, that everybody had a seat at the table and was actually heard when the decisions were being made.
All right, redistricting. Okay, my children have been in the school system for a while. We have been through a couple different redistricting, some that impacted my children's schools, some that haven't. Our particular situation never got impacted. I come to this with a slightly different view. I agree that the process needs altered. I have been a data scientist for 20 years now. My job is I do longitudinal studies on impact. I do migration studies. I do all sorts of things in the realm of data science. And looking at the process in the eyes of a data scientist, some issues that I see that might need talked about or changed are aligning the policy with the actual collaborative efforts that the board wants. I'd like to see a data freeze on the data that's used throughout the process. I would like to have repetitive modeling, no kitchen sink modeling. I call it the guess and check method. We need to have an iterative process where the people supply the plan, the community feedback, over and over again. Here you go, bud.
Yeah, thanks. All right. So redistricting, pros and cons. I don't know any pros for this. A lot of the cons are we didn't take neighborhoods into account, natural land borders, or even distance to the schools. My kids in 139 are tasked out to be redistricted almost yearly to Appleton. I literally have to drive past a school to get them to the school they want me to go to. I can walk to the school. I used to. What else is wrong with the system is we didn't talk to the community. We waited till the last minute to develop a plan and give it to you and then hear back from you, and then we just ignored the community. The board ignored us. This is wrong. We should be looking now for 2023 when the new high school opens. We should be looking to the future and start the plans now. The only redistricting we should do is for capacity or a new school being built. And that's it.
I voted no on the whole redistricting because, to put it nicely, it was a hot mess. Not only did we lock the community out, we This board based the information on bad data. Who makes a decision on bad data? What worries me more is that the canary in the coal mine? Is that how the board and the school system is going to make decisions going forward? Not the way I'm going to run, the way I run myself and how I want to be a board member. What we have to do is, I will say, when the superintendent kept talking about having we're going to have a robust system once we move the kids, we're going to do, and I asked him from the desk, I said, well, why don't we have a robust system to tell the parents that this is happening to them? We know where every single student is. We know where all these parents are. Why are we not engaging them at the beginning of the process? There's a huge difference between doing things to people and doing things with people. The board did redistricting to the community, not with the community. And we need to change the process, and we have to do better. And this cannot stand.
James, you right on the mark. You got the next question, buddy. Excellent, excellent, you did good. So the question is, please share an example of how you have worked collaboratively with people you don't necessarily agree with. Now, I'll give you a break, sir. If you agree with everyone, you don't have to answer the question. Pass it on down, right?
I'd be a liar. So I work, as I mentioned, at the University of Maryland, where similarly, not a lot of consensus on what we're doing as a campus. We're going through strategic planning in my department. We have a new vice president in my division. A lot of different ideas come to the table, and you have to discuss through what your personal values are, what your personal priorities are, but you also have to be open to listening to what other people's priorities are, what their values are. If you can't understand the person you're working with as a person, it's really hard to get work done together as a group. And so when we talk about working as a board or as a group, or between a board and a council, or between areas of government, I have to start to understand people as people. And from there, what motivates them, what motivates you, where do you share common ground, how can you work together on your common ground, and then from there, how do you work your differences out around that?
I'm kind of well known for disagreeing a lot. And I think that speaks to character, because if you just go along with everything and never have an opinion, then you'll let anything happen to the people that you care about. And there's nothing more than I care about than children. I'm a father. My work experience, I've been a site supervisor and I've been a store manager. I didn't always agree with what I had to execute from the company, but I had to take into consideration that it was my job to follow what it was expected of me and what was asking me to do. And that is what I would do as a Board of Education member, is be beholden to the stakeholders, the parents, the educators, and the children. And so I think that's the best answer I can give to the question.
So I taught 7th grade. And one of the things that I was always asking myself when I first started teaching was, how do I prepare these kids for a job that doesn't exist yet? It literally kept me up at night thinking, what was I going to do? And so I kind of came up with these 4 principles of things that I was going to do. I was going to teach them to problem solve. I was going to teach them to think critically, to communicate, and to collaborate. So I was already setting out to make sure that they understood how to work with other people, because that is, no matter what the job that they choose, no matter what the path that they go down, they're going to need collaboration skills. And so I would talk to them about, this is how we listen. Find one common thing that you can start the conversation off with. And so we just did this again and again and again, and you would see the students all of a sudden grasping this idea of, let's listen first. Let's see where we can find a common ground, and then let's go from there. Collaboration is critical for what we're doing in the future.
I'm a big fan of collaborative efforts, if anyone knows me. I work on lots of different advisory committees and other things, and I really value what other people's perspectives are on things. I find it really important at work as well for collaborative efforts. I'm a remote employee, so that means that I have to be really intentional on how I communicate with others. I have to ask particular questions to people so that I can understand what exactly they're talking to me about in whatever method they're communicating with me in. I also have 4 children. There's a lot of collaboration that goes on with that. They're really spread out in age, so there's a lot of needs and a lot of different things coming at me very, very frequently. And as a family, we collaborate a lot, and I find it really important things to do. Right?
All right. Well, with 14 and a half years of being in the military, you learn to collaborate with a lot of people. You expect them to watch your back no matter what, whether you agree with them or not. From there, you learn to listen to each other, work together, and solve any issues that come in front of you. You don't sit and argue, you don't have time for that. You listen, understand where each other's coming from, find the best route to get to where you need to go. And that's how you work collaboratively with each other to get to where you want to go. And I like listening, and that's why I'm here at these forums. I hear what the community has to say, and to be engaged. This way we can see where we as a community need to go and want to go.
As a board member, you have to collaborate because you're only 1 vote out of 7 or out of 8, depending on what the issue is. Because it's just a way of getting to the best solution. You never know where that next best idea is going to come from. And a lot of times it comes from somebody who you do not even agree with, but their perspective is different than yours and their approach is different. But the beautiful thing about education is that, I'm going to tell you, people are in it for the right reasons because they care about the children. And you have to keep remembering that, especially in dealing with different community groups and different parent groups, because some of those groups will come at things from totally different ways or even want different goals. It's important to collaborate with everybody and to hear everybody. And then as a board member, you've got to take all this information and come up with a solution that is going to be best for each and every child in the system.
Professionally, I work in computer security, and the interactions between security folks and basically everybody else is constantly a battle of disagreements. Every time you work with a shared building and then you watch the side door be propped open so people can get through that lock, you're seeing a great example of how security and everybody else don't get along immediately. But the key that ends up happening is you got to stop and look farther. Look outside your own little bubble at what you're trying to achieve. Security and operations, both are trying to really enable whatever the mission is. You got to look past the immediate and see what the goal is. And on the Board of Education, the path forward is to remember that regardless of what you think of any specific issue or however you feel in a day or toward the people, is you need to address keeping students safe, safeguarding taxpayer money, and ensuring student success. Thank you.
Thank you all. Next question, Larry, you're going to start. The question is, please explain if you agree or disagree with the recommendations from the code.
I disagree. There has to be, you have to keep local control, and there has to be accountability. And that's my short answer to that. That was you. Sorry. I'm sorry. No, you're good. Is it? How does this work?
As a teacher, I'm excited about Kerwin. I'm pumped about the opportunities that it's going to provide. My little guy was in early intervention. He was in infants and toddlers, 6 months old. He was not moving the way he should, and we were able to get early intervention services for him. And because of that, we actually learned about the REC program to get him into pre-K. We wouldn't be able to afford that program if we just put him in private pre-K. And the Kerwin Commission is really, really focused on this early intervention, catching kids early, getting them the help they need, serving underserved populations to make sure that we can actually educate kids. You know, kids are coming to kindergarten sometimes with a 2-year gap. We're talking about opportunity gap. Kerwin is aiming to remedy that already before the kids get to us. And so, as a teacher, and you'll see a lot of teacher unions and things that are really, really excited about Kerwin. I'm really excited.
A whole minute. I am also excited that Kerwin is being discussed. I think that the funding formulas and the way that budgeting happens and the way that educational gaps are happening really needed to be discussed, and Kerwin focused on that and opened up that conversation. I like to see all the discussions on different ways of funding the plans that they think are going to be supportive of the most children. And I like that those conversations opened. And it's not only just people who are for it or against it, it has opened up different perspectives to talk about it. And it seems like it's really a good process that went through. Mm-hmm.
I disagree with Kerwin. There's no accountability on where the funds go or how they're actually being spent. They don't have any true measure of success. It seems like it's a good plan on paper, but it's just not where it needs to be in order to be put in the processes yet. So it needs more development, more time before we actually put it in, implement it. But as it stands right now, I can't agree with it.
I think there are a lot of noble and great ideas in Kerwin. What concerns me is how are we going to fund the implementation, and how are we going to fund it in a sustainable manner? I think that is a very large piece that has been left out, and it concerns me, because when you go to make a change, and then you start funding it, and then the funding drops out, what are you going to do? Where do you take the funding? Do you take it from another program that the students need? Do you go to the state? I mean, because the question is, the taxpayers are the ones who are going to be paying for this. And I think with all of the time that they've spent on the different ideas that they want implemented, they have not spent enough time on the funding piece of it. And I think they need to get that right before they start. Because unfortunately, the students hopefully are only going through first grade once, second grade once. They have a finite period of time that they're in our public schools. And we need to make sure that that time is well spent.
When it comes to education policy, the first people we need to be looking at and focusing on are the educators. They're the ones that experience it every day, and so we should be following their direction and coming up with what is an education policy that works and will work for the school. What I've seen with Kerwin is that statewide, across the board, the pressure behind it, it is being supported by the educators. And I think we should listen to the educators about how to educate. Thank you.
All right, so Kerwin, looking at what's happened when something wasn't perfect, Kerwin replaces something that's nearly 20 years old in Thornton in terms of the formulas for funding our schools. We talk about redistricting and why that was such a mess. Part of that was 20 years of not doing what you're supposed to do because you didn't have the perfect plan at the time. As you look at other things, if we keep waiting, we're going to say, well, what's after Kerwin? 20 years ago, wish they would have passed Kerwin and done something with it. We need to be mindful of that now. In terms of investing in our kids, Kerwin is an investment in our kids. Talk about early intervention. Early intervention, much cheaper than late intervention. So if you intervene early, you save money later. If you keep people educated and doing well, we spend varying amount, 16 to 18,000 per student to educate them. We pay over $40,000 to incarcerate somebody in the state of Maryland. If we keep somebody out of prison, that's where that money comes from in terms of funding it long term.
Thank you very much. Next question is from the audience. What has the school board done to guarantee redistrict children who need before and after school program will receive bus transportation to school and home?
So that's a good question. I think when we're talking about this process, a lot of this has been done on the backs of principals. So the principals are the ones kind of rolling out the information, gathering the information for staff and for students, and going forward with, educating people on where they're going to get these resources from. So I really do think that the board has not really stepped up to the plate and let parents know that what's happening in the process. Some parents honestly don't even know that they're being redistributed right now. So I really do think that the board needs to send something home, educate our parents, send it out in multiple languages so people can read it, and tell them what's happening, what the process is going to be.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Ready?
Yeah.
Good. What has the school board done to guarantee redistrict children who need before and after school programs will receive bus transportation to school and home?
I am not 100% sure I understand the question, because it's my understanding that children that need before and after school care don't get school transportation to school. So I'm a little confused about that. I think what it's nodding at is that some people are concerned that children that come from lower income families might not have the way to get to school before and after school if they need childcare before and after. I think that's what the question's asking. I haven't seen the board do anything about that. But what I have heard conversations and have had conversations with the county council members on how can we maybe look at the RTA system a little bit to change that, so that maybe our high school students can use that transportation, and we can work it out so the timing is right. Or maybe there are fundings on grants and things that can provide better transportation for before and after school services.
I'm not even aware that they've put any guarantees out, let alone sent out letters to let people know that they are being redistricted in the language they speak. I'm hearing that it still hasn't even been put out in Spanish to the Spanish neighborhoods who's getting redistricted, so I doubt they've given any guarantees on who's getting before or after bus routes and stuff.
I think what this question is hitting on is one of the unintended consequences of the redistricting of when you take walkers and you put them on buses. Because if these students previously could walk to and from school, or they had a family member who could walk with the child, and now they're being bused, how are they going to be able to get to before and after care? I think that is the real problem, which goes back to the fact that the redistricting process is broken, and because of the way that it was done, there are so many unintended consequences that did not need to be unintended consequences if we really thought what this would mean for our families.
You have a question about how to equitably meet the needs of our students. And it's drawing directly into an issue that we already aren't. And access to school and access from school is currently provided to the general population by the buses that say when they're leaving home and when they get back. And if there's any variation that they need to that, the school doesn't meet it. It doesn't provide it. It's on the parents now, and post-redistricting, it's still on the parents. And the after-school programs that the school might provide or that Parks and Rec provide are simply not available to students that need to get home after that if the parents can't meet it. And coming up with a solution for that is a way to provide equitably for the needs of our student body.
Sure, so looking at transportation in terms of redistricting, I think something could be hinted at in this question as well as children that are moved from a school where their home school had the program that did meet their needs, they're now redistricted to a home school that doesn't offer the same program. So trying to find transportation that keeps them at the home school for a program. Part of the solution to that is we just identified another gap of why don't all of these schools have these programs? It shouldn't matter which school you go to find before care, to find after care. In terms of how we're transporting our students, talking about partnerships, ways we can collaborate with the county. You know, even if we look at later school start times, is that also a potential piggybacking solution to address a transportation need, to address aftercare needs? There's a lot of different ways to get there efficiently.
Larry, before you start your answer, we have a request. The good news is that someone out there is actually watching this in live streaming, which is terrific. The person, the person, asked if you would turn you all to please speak a little louder, maybe hold the microphone closer to you.
Bad data leads to bad outcomes, and bad outcomes is the main cause of inconveniencing families like mine in District 2. So what we could do is look at possible partnerships. For example, a community like Oakland Mills could look at partnering with the Columbian Association to see if we can get a bus to help support our children who used to go to school at Stevens Forest, who now are going to go to school at Thunder Hill, so they can be able to get back and forth to their after-school program. So I think if we lead with that idea in our minds, we can probably come up with a way to get it done.
Okay. We're going to get the question now.
Okay.
Okay. And by the way, to say that only one person is on there, that's false, because the good news is we found out that already from last night there were 4,000. So people care.
Hey, everyone.
Okay, young lady. Here's the question. And like I said, please speak up.
Yes.
What is your opinion on the presence of guns in schools, and does their presence serve to increase security?
I do not ever believe guns should be at school. I know there is lots of conversation in the community over if guns should be at school or not. I think it's absolutely dangerous to have guns around children, and to not have the security as a parent or even as a member of an advocacy group in the community, to know that there is a potential that someone who doesn't have the skills and the training required to participate in any instance that requires them to use a gun at the school when my children are there or other people's children are there, that's a big no for me.
All right, we can talk louder. I guess I would actually ask for a little more clarification. Are we talking about with resource officers or with teachers? Because if you're talking about with resource officers, that's a different case. If you're talking about with teachers or principals or any kind of educational staff, no.
You answer the question any way you want, sir. This came from the audience, and I'm not going to interpret what the person meant. But go ahead and answer within a minute.
Outside of resource officers who are trained, no. Educational staff do not need one in the classrooms. What we need to be doing is closing and securing our facilities. We have too many schools where I can find security issues, such as walking into the office and I can see where your cameras are. I can see every ounce you're recording, where you are, where you can see your blind spots. That's false. You don't need that. Those are things we need to fix first.
No, I do not think we should be arming teachers. I think that is not the way to handle this situation. What we do have to do is we have to look at the security measures we currently have, and we need to abide by them. We have to make sure that they're being done. For example, when you go to be let into a building, don't hold the door open because your neighbor's coming. Everybody needs to be announced. So it's one of those things where you have to look at what you're doing, and security needs to continue to be reviewed and reviewed and reviewed. I will say that Dr. Margarana has put together a security team, unlike what was existing before. Things have changed. Security continues to evolve, and it's something that you have to continue to do to make sure that you're getting better and better and better at. But again, as far as arming teachers, no, or staff, no. Again, if school resource officers have a weapon and that is what is supposed to happen, that's fine, but definitely not our staff, because I don't think there are any teachers who went into teaching in order to carry a gun to school.
She went ahead and reminded you that security people and people trying to get through the doors don't agree. But to the question, no. And our students at school should have no exposure to firearms that are not pre-planned through a curriculum if that's decided. But they are traumatic, they are developed for killing people, and no, they should not be in our schools.
Yeah, so that's a no for me. And that's really across the board. You know, when you look at even SROs, it's pretty neat to think of every kid in that school feels safe walking past somebody with a gun every single day. Somebody acts out in class. Sometimes the person called is the person with a gun. My son, as I mentioned, is a special education student with behavior control issues. There are instances where children like my son have been handcuffed by people with guns. If my son gets older and he's in a school where somebody with a gun responds to a disruption, I don't want that person to have a gun aimed at my child. And so looking at, I've been in an active threat situation at the University of Maryland. We had very poor information of who the active threat was about. The description was very broad. The description also changed within 5 minutes. So people we might have let in because they didn't match the description, didn't match the new one. And so when people respond, they don't even know what they're responding to, and then they have a gun. So.
Yeah, that's a no for me as well. And what we need to do is get to the bottom of root causes for violence, and we have to offer more support to our teachers and our staff, and to help them recognize the signs before violence breaks out. And what we do that by making sure there are preventative measures by building on the security measures that we already have. And as you said, not holding the door open to let someone walk in behind you. As a parent, it's already frightening that my son at 5 years old has to participate in active shooter drills. That is scary. It's bad enough that when he goes to school, I have to be concerned. Well, not necessarily, because this school is a great school and we have a great community. But reality is, anything can happen. So no, we should not arm our teachers. What we should do is make sure everyone in the school building is armed with the proper training with what the security policies are, to make sure that we are being preventative and not reactive after the fact.
So, guns in school is a hard no. It's a hard no for me. Even at the SRO level, hard no. I don't think that guns belong in schools at all. I came to a field trip and I watched my son's teacher tie like 8 shoelaces. I don't want to add a gun to her day of things she's got to do, right? Mm-hmm. So I just don't think guns, the data actually doesn't support guns in school. It doesn't support SROs, people even carrying guns in school. So I think we need to look at the things that actually work. I talked to a counselor and she said, hurt kids end up hurting kids. So we need to be proactive in our measures and make sure that we're safeguarding our students and that we're actually doing things that are protective and preventative.
Let me get to this question. First question is, how will you work with a state delegation and county council that are overeager to legislate and remove local control from the Board of Education? Want to repeat it?
That's a nice one. Well, again, it's more or less working with other board members to make sure that doesn't happen. Is to have discussions with those entities on dealing with it. Show that we don't support these things of taking control away from us, because again, this is our community, not theirs. They deal with the state, they deal with everybody. We focus on the county, and that's where we need to focus the state. They're gonna focus on everybody in total, a little bit here, a little bit there. We need to make sure we keep the control here so we can do the job for our community and be their voice. And it's gonna be having discussions with them, sit downs, and bringing the community with us to have these sit downs and discussions with these delegates.
Your Board of Education member is your most local form of government. And we're elected to represent you and to represent your feelings and your ideas and what you want to see in your school system, not someone in Annapolis. If they really want to get into school and education policy, I suggest they run for the Board of Education and leave Annapolis alone. But I think it's important that the board works with the community so that the community understands the relationship between the community and the Board of Education. Because if we cannot represent you, you're not going to have the representation, because you want to have a say in your child's education. You want to have a say in your community. And we are very blessed in Howard County to have an amazing community. Our community members is probably one of our largest assets. So I want to protect that relationship so that you can continue to have a voice and allow a voice in the decisions of the Board of Education.
I will work closely with our state delegation to make sure that they are aware of the needs, that they can go to Annapolis and ensure that the state funding is there to help us out. But the behaviors of Annapolis don't just take away local control or reshape the school district. They fund our education. And when local control was taken away from Annapolis, our local delegation took that back, and it removed the state level mandate on the calendar to provide local control. Thank you.
Sure, so looking at, it comes down to the balance of local control or not. And, it's important, we talked before the session started of Board of Education is not the only thing on the ballot. More often than not, it might be a little different. But in terms of when people vote, you vote for your Board of Education, your council, your delegates, your state senators, and so on. You get a choice of who you send to Annapolis, who you send to Washington. It is supposed to be a collaborative effort. We should be communicating and collaborating on our needs. The Board of Education can't tell the governor where he's supposed to send his money. He can't tell the president or the Secretary of Education where to send money and what to do. It is a collaborative effort across multiple electeds, so we have to have that. And sometimes local control, hate to say, Captain of the Titanic had local control over that ship, needed some help. There is benefits of collaboration and not local control for the sake of everything.
For so long, government has wedged itself between parent and child. And I think that the folks in Annapolis should take the lead on education policy from the Board of Education. yes, it's a collaborative effort because that's how we get funding. But at the same time, the lead on education policy should be driven by the Board of Education. Town halls to make sure that the community is giving their input. And like I said, for so long, District 2 has been counted out. And so a district like District 2 would benefit from a Board of Education that's beholden to sending the lead on education policy from the community through the board up to Annapolis.
So earlier we talked about collaboration, and I think this is what we're hitting on now. I think there's a mindset shift. Like, we're not in it against what's happening at the state level. We're not against the county council representatives. This is a collaborative effort. We are at we have a monumental problem. This is not the time to slice people from the table. I think it is the time to bring in more voices. It's the time for us to actually, now that we've divided it up into districts, for us to have a positive relationship with our county council representative in our district. And to really start to open the doors to have more discussion, more productive conversations about what's really happening and some of the needs that we have to address.
There's some times that I'm just like reading what's going on down the line. It's kind of difficult to try to think of differently. But anyway, I totally agree with the collaboration effort. I think it's really important. And some of the times, I think the reason is important because sometimes through the Board of Education or through a particular area, we're not seeing a collaboration happening. And we're not seeing the voices of the people that we represent being heard. And so some of the things that we've seen with some bills that have been coming through and stuff that require, we'd like you to look at this, we'd like you to report every year on this, it's because they want to know that everyone is being heard and everyone is working collaborative together. I think that conversation is very important to have across all elected officials that represent a particular area.
Thank you very much. Christina, you got to have this question first. Ready for this one? Good. What is your one decision you believe the current Board of Education got right? I only read them, ma'am.
No, I think the Board of Education, one decision to be able to. I think, pardon?
Speak up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think what the board is doing well is that we are listening more to the community, and I think that that is helping, but not in as many ways as I would particularly like to see. Especially with policies, I would say we're doing a much better job of listening to the community and listening to the policy committees, and people are coming out and providing input, because the policies are what really touches your children in the school on a daily basis. So I think from that perspective, we are doing better. But again, with everything, there's always room for improvement, and we have to continue to listen to the community.
The superintendent this last cycle negotiated increase with the teachers, and that wasn't the line that the school board cut. The Board of Education chose to fund and support our teaching staff.
I still want to have more time to pull one together. I think there's bits and pieces that the board has done well. If we're looking at a total systematic approach, I know that there's a true, real, everybody in the neighborhood felt really great about something that came out. But I think there are pieces in terms of talking about listening to community members. I've seen a lot of great public testimony, public discussion, and it may have come through errors and mistakes, but the dialogue has increased and community engagement has increased. I hate to say, if things were going well, this room probably would not be as full as it is right now. The room between last night and tonight, probably could use fewer tables. So increased civic engagement is a net positive, and maybe not like how we got to it, but I think the result itself is positive and makes us stronger.
My answer is short. I think the intent was there to address some of the disparities that we have in the community, but the process didn't serve us well. And but the intent, I will acknowledge the intent, but I'm not happy with the process. As I said, we're always left out, and if I completely agreed with everything, I probably wouldn't be running to be the voice that we need in District 2.
I think one of the things the board got right was that they voted on Black Lives Matter Week in Action. I thought that was a phenomenal vote, and it was a unanimous vote. And so that was one of the first times you saw down the line that the board agreed. There's positive conversation surrounding it, and I actually got to go to a couple of good things, a couple of good local events.
One thing that I've liked watching the board do recently was discuss what they feel a healthy school system looks like. I think they all have different priorities, and I have seen them grow over time, this particular board that's right now, to try to listen to each other a little bit and talk about what changes can we make to make this school system healthy. Is it in how we are optimizing where our students are going to school? Is it how we are optimizing our resources within the funding we have? All of these ideas, I think that they're trying to talk more and be more cooperative with each other recently.
I think everybody here has brought up a good point, but I would agree with the teacher pay raise. These teachers have been paying out of their pockets for school supplies that should have been provided. We have them working through lunch breaks, this way they can keep up. And a lot of them are even working late. So I think the one decision that was good was making sure they actually got a pay raise that reflected the increase of what we're putting on them.
Thank you. After this is your question, sir. To start. What type of involvement do you currently have with the PTA and/or DOE?
Currently, I'm a paid member of the two separate PTAs that my students, my children attend. That has been a priority for me since the first one went to kindergarten, is that regardless of how much time I've been able to allocate or set up for it, sign up early, sign up every year. And the PTAs need the community support. They need some funding to be able to provide the services that they have. And I just recently attended a fantastic presentation that Dunlogan Middle School put on about keeping our kids safe online. And the PTA bringing in resources like that to the parents and community are a real asset.
Sure, so been a PTA member at the school level, but in terms of involvement with the Board of Ed, looking at, I've taken on joining the CAC, but also become someone that's testifying more often, bringing my opinion out more often, trying to advocate more often, and the things I've testified for have not directly impacted me. They've been things that I've seen in the community that I felt strong enough to bring forward and hopefully bring attention to. And so those are the things I've done, and running for this office is a continuation of that.
I'm a member of the PTA at Stevens Forest. I am connected to the BOE as a HCPSS, as a Howard County Public Schools parent. And I am also on the Oakland Mills Community Association that works closely with the Board of Education to make sure that, if the need is necessary, we put something in writing to express what we need in the community. And my next connection to the BOE is making sure that I went out on a ride-along with 2 of the members to make sure that they saw Polygon 96 and they saw Polygon 1110, and they understood that these 2 polygons were the same apartment complex. So, there's a lot more connections to build, but yeah, I think I'm able to demonstrate that I have that connection.
So I am a member of my son's school's PTA, and I actually started as a member when he was in rec. Did you know you could join when your kid's just in rec? So I started there, and I am the community relations chair. So we go out and we buy gift cards for families that are in need, and I give them to the counselor, and she distributes them to members of our community, our school community that needs them. We do this around Thanksgiving time and then around Christmas time. So I do the shopping for that and make sure that I talk to the counselor about how much she needs, how much she thinks, how many families we can impact. Oh, that's fine. And so we also have, I'm also on the CAC, member of the CAC board, CAC member as well.
So the CAC is an advisory group. There's 2 advisory groups to the Board of Education. The CAC is one of them, and the other one is the OBRC. These are supposed to provide information to the board about community involvement and questions and things like that. I am the vice chair of the CAC, and I am the representative on the OBRC. I also do some fun data studies through myself. I have my own questions, and I answer them, and I email the board my information. I don't know if they like it, but I do. I did studies on, I was looking at the HCEA climate studies in the schools, and I was curious if there are schools that the teachers' questions and answers were clustering along certain areas. So were certain schools' climates very similar to each other? I did some of that and I emailed it to them. And I've also looked at lots of other interesting questions that I come up with.
All right, well, I am an active member of my son's PTA. I was a member of PTAC during the food fair. That's actually where I was arguing to have foods removed. I have built a lot of relationships with some of the members on the board currently. I'm looking forward to rebuilding those with them. And that's about it.
Prior to being on the Board of Education, I got involved in PTA at my local PTAs, and at my elementary school, I actually established a districting committee. Who would have known? I also found my way to the PTA Council of Howard County. I spent 3 years as president of the PTA Council, and I was also on the Operating Budget Review Committee for 3 years, 2 as co-chair, and then when a previous board dismantled the Operating Budget Review Committee, I established the Citizens Operating Budget Review Committee with the president of the Teachers Union. So I'm going to make a plug for PTA here. Did you know that you do not have to have a child in the school to be a PTA member? So please join. We have a lot of schools to pick from, so if you want to help certain schools, definitely join their PTA.
Thank you, Kate. This is going to be your question. What are your solutions to the perpetual school overcrowding issues that plague our schools, especially in the Route 1 corridor? Call appropriate.
So high school 14, for that, I think we talked about before redistricting and what that does. When you're redistricting, we still are at a net overcapacity as a system, and so that only does so much. So where are we finding land for new schools? We struggle with site identification, site acquisition, site location. Part of the redistricting problem that we face, especially if you do try to incorporate equity, is where the schools we have now located, in addition to where should they have been located. We need to stop the process of where's the one place we can put a school? Yeah, that's perfect. Let's put a school there. We'll figure out the rest out around it. We need to be creative in how we're acquiring land, what we're doing with the land that we already have. Again, that's where partnerships come in with the county and homeowners as well, but
I would just want to see us focus on increasing community input and making sure that there's the right type of collaboration between the community and making these kinds of decisions, like you said, with the homeowners and that. So I think it should be, well, that's my answer.
Can you repeat the question? I was telling people how much longer we have up here.
No problem, I'm happy to. What are your solutions to the perpetual school overcrowding issues that plague our schools, especially on this corridor here, Route 1?
So I think one of the things that we have to do is start thinking long-term. It seems that we are reactionary right now. We're not planning for, again, when we're talking about collaboration, we're not working with the county, really trying to think about where new things are being constructed in our county. And so I think we need to start looking forward and thinking about where we can place a new school, where we can place our resources, and really getting input from the community on where they want to, what they want to see. I've already talked to people about why isn't High School 13 in Elkridge? So we're already having these conversations with the community members about what they want to see, where they want to see it, and how we can deal with our capacity issues.
So the CAC is an advisory group. There's two advisory groups to the Board of Education. The CAC is one of them, and the other one is the OBRC. These are supposed to provide information to the board about community and involvement and questions and things like that. I am the vice chair of the CAC, and I am the representative on the OBRC. I also do some fun data studies through myself. I have my own questions, and I answer them, and I email the board my information. I don't know if they like that, but I do. I did studies on, I was looking at the HCEA climate studies in the schools, and I was curious if there are schools that the teachers' questions and answers were clustering along certain areas. So were certain schools' climates very similar to each other? I did some of that, and I emailed it to them. And I've also looked at lots of other interesting questions that I come up with.
All right, well, I am an active member of my son's PTA. I was a member of PTAC during the food fair. That's actually where I was arguing to have foods removed. I have built a lot of relationships with some of the members on the board currently. I'm looking forward to rebuilding those with them, and that's about it.
Prior to being on the Board of Education, I got involved in PTA at my local PTAs, and at my elementary school, I actually established a districting committee. Who would have known? I also found my way to the PTA Council of Howard County. I spent 3 years as president of the PTA Council, and I was also on the Operating Budget Review Committee for 3 years, 2 as co-chair, and then when a previous board dismantled the Operating Budget Review Committee, I established the Citizens Operating Budget Review Committee with the president of the Teachers Union. So I'm going to make a plug for PTA here. Did you know that you do not have to have a child in a school to be a PTA member? So please join. We have a lot of schools to pick from, so if you want to help certain schools, definitely join their PTA.
The board itself, every time it's looking at the numbers of student capacity and such, needs to approach this problem every time with an empathetic feel toward what the student experience in life is like. Okay. Have you ever thought about going to the mall and then realized it's a week before Christmas and you don't want to be a part of that, that's what our students go to at Howard and Centennial every day. Instead of adjusting the balance and planning for that, we take away green space, we take away parking lots to add more classrooms, which in turn allows more students to show up to the same building, which increases those crowds. And that anxiety, that feeling that they're getting every time they're in those crowds, that's the environment we expect them to be able to learn.
Thank you. Larry, you're going to go first on this one. You ready, sir?
Sure.
Good. Do you have any ideas how to improve discipline in the elementary schools?
No.
The answer is no, that's okay.
Okay. No. I don't want to confuse this answer with how I, never mind, I won't say that. Well, we have to work with our educators, work with our classroom teachers. They spend a lot of time with our kids. They see how our kids act when they're not with us at home. And I think that that's something that we should just collaborate with educators on. I don't know, you may not like this answer, but it's hard for me to just speak to how to, are we talking about suspensions? Are we talking about when a child just acts out?
You all can interpret this question any way you so desire.
Well, I'm going to interpret it this way. It has to be input from the folks, the teachers in the classroom that spends time, that sees the behaviorisms of the kids, and we would actually go out, get their input, and put together a plan.
Thank you. I think the answer to that is counselors. It has been shown, studies have shown again and again that the more access you have to actual school counselors, the better your classroom behavior is, the better the whole school environment is for every student. So I think that we're talking about discipline. We need to be proactive and talk about how to stop that before it becomes a problem.
I agree with that, and I'd also like to add that I think having the schools feel as an environment and culture where students are welcome and valued, parents are welcome and valued, the teaching force reflects the students, the curriculum reflects students' experience, a more holistic approach to making a place that's school a place where parents want their children to be, where students want to be, and where they feel like they are valued, I think really will help with discipline and other concerns at the elementary school.
I feel like I'm jumping on Ms. Potts' answer here, but it's a good one. But again, as I've stated before, counselors in schools, we got to get rid of stigmatism that seeking help, discussing our issues with someone is a problem, or that you're weak. That's where we got to start. Making it easier for our students to go see counselors, to get help, to discuss the problems they are facing, and maybe finding ways to help them through those issues. That's really all I had.
I think one of the more important things we can do is make sure that we provide our educators with the training they need so that we can figure out how to prevent these behaviors before they happen. We need individuals who understand behaviors of children, especially in elementary school, because keep in mind, elementary school is the beginning of their educational career. It's the beginning of their life. We have to get this right when they're in elementary school. So I think that is the piece that we need to do, is the training.
The students need to be invested, and their teachers need to be supported. It's come up a couple times today, local control. Enable the principals to keep the teachers feeling supported, keep the teachers and the students supported with therapists and guidance counselors, and make sure that everybody is ready to learn and go through class. Hungry kids aren't invested in the day, so we need to make sure that we're addressing food insecurity issues that could lead to discipline problems. If they're getting on the bus before they're hungry enough to eat their breakfast, then they're hungry before lunch. We need to ensure that our school schedules fit the students.
Sure, so discipline elementary school kids. I wish I had the magic answer to that, even at home. But looking at once they're in school, so definitely counselors are part of that equation, but also we've lost additional supports in all of our elementary schools, whether that's lost special educators, lost para-educators, all of that impacts our general education classroom students. So when the supports that help our most vulnerable students are now not in the classroom, that burden falls onto the classroom teacher to not only manage their general ed students, but also their inclusion students, and then doing that with less. And then doing that next year, potentially with less and more students in each of those classrooms. It's hard to manage a class as it is, let alone adding to it while you're taking away. And then at the school level, if we're not increasing support at the school level as well, they're going to feel that burden across the whole school.
Thank you. We're going to have two more questions, and then we'll give you closing, and then we'll wrap it up. So you got this one. What is your plan for narrowing the socioeconomic and racial opportunity gap in Howard County schools?
So the opportunity gap is a big one. I think my plan for that is to really be proactive in our approach. There have been numerous studies that show that if you give students the opportunity in the front end, the achievement reflects that in the back end. So one of my things that I really would like to do is to see more teachers of color and to be able to retain those teachers of color in the classroom in front of our students. It's one of the ways that we can actually exponentially increase our students' performance, especially and it's actually across the board. I know when people hear teacher diversity, they're automatically thinking black and brown kids, but if you put actually a teacher of color in front of anyone, it's been shown that we're actually preparing them for the 21st century, and they're going to work in a diverse environment. They're going to recognize that this authority figure is knowledgeable, and they're going to see that as they move forward.
I think it's a similar response to how I deal with behavior issues in elementary school, right? I think going back to the students, the parents, the teachers, everyone feeling like they are valued and that they are supported, and that if we have resources that look like what students are experiencing in their life, that reflect what maybe their different outlooks are, or whatever, right? So more representation and more support of who people actually are and what our community actually is. And to do that, we need to hire a diverse teaching staff, and we need to support them with the resources, which includes anti-bias training, updated anti-bias training for school populations and for teachers, everybody. Yeah.
Great question. I guess it would depend on what's being discussed. Students, for how things are going on in classes, are actually important. They should take priority in that because they're the ones learning in those classrooms. When we're looking at new educational programs, obviously we should talk to our teachers because they're the ones that's going to be teaching this to our students, and they should know how these programs work and if they're going to be effective or not, and we should take their opinions on that. Staff are the conditions of the schools. They're going to be the ones going around the schools. They're going to see where we need improvements, what needs to be done. So I don't think any one's important more than the other. They're all equal, and it all is who we need to listen to improve what we have and go forward from here.
It's a balance, quite frankly, depending on what the issue is. But one important thing about the voices of our staff, our parents, and our students is that we have to make sure that we listen to them when they come to tell us that something is not working. Because to me, that is one of the most important times that input from our staff and our teachers and our administrators, the custodians who know everything that's going on in the building, and the parents and the students. Because in the past, the Board of Education and the school system was not very good at that. They didn't want to hear it unless you were saying everything was fantastic. I'd rather hear when things aren't fantastic, because I can't fix them if I don't know about them. And whether you talk about it or not, it's still happening. So I'm hoping that the board continues to listen to those three voices as we keep moving forward.
I agree. All the voices are important, and the context of the discussion matters. We're not going to hold the kindergartners about whether we have the appropriate high school sports, but when a question impacts the population, that's when we need to be listening to that population. And if the high schoolers are telling us that they're not being provided a challenge, we figure out how to meet that. If the parents are telling us that the schedules and the transportation is not working for their family, we figure out a way to meet that need. When the staff isn't being met by the building or their pay, we figure out how to meet that need.
Another tough one. So tough because as a parent, I have one I say all the time at home, but and I've also found out my opinion much lower on the total poll. But when listening to kids, it is important to keep kids into the conversation. The best example I have of that is I have 100 college students that work for me, and we have thousands that work with us or work through our programs. And as a department and as a supervisor, I come up with things that I think are awesome. I have researched them, I have found best practices, I am excited, I have learning outcomes, I am ready, and it fails. And they hated it, everything about it, did not get what I wanted them to get out of it, and need to be mindful of that. I'm not going to put them through something again just because everybody else's voice told me that I did the right thing. If the group of students that I have right in front of me is telling me it's not for them, I need to listen to that, and that needs to be part of the decision.
So I've long said that the parents and the children, parents and students are the most important voice. Those are our customers when you're running a school system. Most important voice. Do we ignore the correct data? No. Do we take into account what other stakeholders have to say, like our educators and school staff? Yes, we take that into account. But our parents and the children are the leading voice in any decision that we make in education policy. At the end of the day, whatever we teach in the schools impact the futures and the potential of every child in Howard County public schools. So, yeah.
So when I was thinking about running for this position, I made a list of everything that I believe in that surrounds education. Just a complete brain dump of all the items I believe. And then I kind of grouped those. And what I came out with was what some may think is a tagline, right? Whole child, whole educator, whole community. And that is a collaborative effort. So I don't think there's any one voice that's bigger than the other. I think that if we are, as a community, we take care of our teachers, then our teachers can take care of our children. We're all in this together, and that's where we need to be.
Thank you. Now, candidates will have 1 minute for closing. You can say anything you want. Up to you. And Christina, you go first.
I'd like to start by thanking the Howard County Citizens Association and the People's Voice for putting on the forum. I also want to thank all of you for coming out. This is great that you're continuing to be involved. I think it's very, very important. Advocacy and advocacy for your schools and your children is one of the most important things you can do, and I thank you for that. The last question kind of dovetails as to why I'm running for the board again. I want to hear what's not going right, and I want to see what I can do as a board member in working with my fellow board members to direct the superintendent to make sure that we start getting things, we get things right. We're not going to always get things right, but we need to continue to move in that direction. Before I had children, I was a congressional investigator, and I investigated wastewater abuse in the federal government and talked about not getting things right. So I want to take that experience and continue to use it on the board. And I want to continue to be your voice on the Board of Education in District 1. I want the community's voice to be strong, and I want to make sure that you're represented. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. Thank you to the People's Voice and HCCA for having this forum. And I want to make sure that the board keeps a direction focused on 3 principles. We need to protect and ensure the safety and mental health of our students. We need to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollars, and we need to maximize our students' academic achievement. I'm Matthew Molliet. I hope you've heard enough to be able to support me for Howard County Board of Education.
All right, so looking at what I bring to the table in terms of advocacy, not just for things that impact me, but looking at District 2 in particular. Anybody I've talked to can't remember the last time District 2 had representation on the Board of Education, and it shows through the state of affairs in District 2. And so that's my first and primary reason of District 2 needs a voice within the community, a voice willing to go out, but also a voice with solutions and looking at best practices, looking at what Seattle is doing for teacher recruitment and working at 3rd grade in terms of equity. They've targeted 3rd grade reading as a primary focal point in terms of targeting their money and best outcomes. Counties in Florida have worked on later school start times and saving money. State of California investing $900 million in special education because they value it. Looking at what others are doing, how can we bring that to our county and having solutions?
So, thank you for putting on this forum and sitting here and showing up. We want more of everyone across the county to do that. I'm running for the Board of Education because I live in District 2, and our district has not had the representation that it needs for children of color. It has not had the progress that it needs for children of color. And not that progress is only limited to being needed for children of color, but it begins with children of color. A lot of statistics point to, when you look at opportunity gaps and achievement gaps, what we don't do for our children of color leads to certain things happening in the community. A lot of people don't want to speak on that, but I don't mind speaking on that because it's the truth. A lot of people come to District 2, want to tell us what we need without asking us anything. So I'm running because, not just because of the experience that I have, but because the passion that I have for the community. Not only have I demonstrated it, but I have made a commitment to make sure that we propel District 2 forward.
Sorry, guys. Want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you for tuning in, because I know it's bedtime and people are trying to get kids down to bed. So thank you for sometimes we get stuck in the conversation of who's in the room, and we need to realize that even if you're not here, you still care about your kids. So one of the things I want to make sure that I get across to you is that we are dealing with a very complex system and a complex problem. And I think at this time, we need somebody with a complex background. Somebody who has the data experience, but also the education experience and the board experience. And that's what I bring. And we talk about representation, because I mean, everybody in District 2 already knows that we have been underrepresented. And it's time for us to kind of bring our passion and our voice and get some of our issues resolved. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for coming. It is so important for me to see other advocates and people who are truly invested in the school system. We all believe that the school system is so valuable to our communities, and we all believe that we want to make the best choices for our school system. I feel, and the reason I ran for the board is because I really do believe that I have the skills and values to continue having the best school system that we can have, and continue to use my data skills that I can put forth, as well as my community advocacy, to merge those together and really make the school system what our community needs. I live in District 3. My children go to District 2 schools. However, it's a whole county school system. It's not just about our district, and we need to keep that really understood, and we need to make the best choices that we can.
Like I say, thank you to HCCA and the People's Voice for putting this on tonight, and for the community coming out, as well as watching us. And of course, for the difficult questions you guys presented today. The reason why I'm running it is, again, I grew up in this county since 1989. I've lived in District 3 just as long, and I've seen what our schools can be, and unfortunately, I've seen where we're heading, and it's not in the direction which I would envision when I was attending these schools. I want to be your voice for change in District 3. We haven't been represented well. I just want to be here to continue and build my community up, and so we can all work together and achieve what we need to achieve for our kids.
I want to thank you all for being here today, because without a doubt, you are winners. The questions that were asked by the audience, again, I say, were fabulous. Your responses were even better. And I got to tell you, I've been doing this for a while, and you really and truly, really impressed me. And I sincerely appreciate your passion that you have for trying to do something, step up to the plate, where you believe that right is right. So, thank you very much. Now, we have a few, let's applaud. I also want to thank the timekeeper, who did an outstanding job. And we have a few announcements to make. First of all, the People's Voice, Ms. Markovitz, Lisa. She's the president. She's also the vice president of HCCA, which I'm very, very pleased. We have a few announcements, I'll say, and one of them is on the 19th of March. Put this on your calendar if you think about it. There's going to be a seminar that the People's Voice is going to be putting on. It'll be at the Hawthorne Center. You can go on their website. It's ethicsballot.com. You can see all about it, get details, etc. They and us would like for you all to attend. And not only that, but please pass it on to your neighbors, email them, social media, whatever. We're very, very pleased. We also HCCA, which, as I say, I'm the president, HCCA has been in existence since 1961. I know it's a lot older than most of you people here. Is that true? Okay. Yeah, not me though. Any event, we would like for you all to consider joining. It's only $5,000 a year. It's $20. It's $10 if you're retired or whatever. And our website, well, first of all, we do have some applications, and you can pick them up over here. In addition, we have a nice website, a fantastic website. I'm a little prejudiced, but it's Howard County, hcca.org. And if you have nothing better to do, you can at least see HCCA is involved in north, south, east, and west. All of them. We're very, very active. There's no question about it. You can see all the testimonies that we've done over the years. But we have a film that we did a couple of years ago that we're very proud of. It's 31 minutes. It's a Bridge to the Future about Columbia. And at the very end, it's very, very moving because Elijah Cummings is on it. And I suggest that you all view it if you can. We also have, coming up in June, I don't have the date yet, but we are honored that the county executive, who was with us last year, will also be with us this year for our HCC annual meeting. And if nothing else, we generally have complimentary Lito's Pizza. So if that doesn't turn you on, perhaps nothing will. So we would like for you all to consider that. We have, that'll also be on our website when we get a firm date. We also have a listserv that has a lot of members on it, as well as paid members, as I said. And the good news is I see a lot of paid members here tonight, and we're very, very pleased with that. So again, I invite you to join us, but more importantly, again, I'd like to thank these individuals who sat up here tonight. Could have done things better in that they could have been home watching TV, maybe the Democratic debate, I don't know. But in any event, I'm kind of glad that I missed it because I had an opportunity to meet these people. So thank you very much.
The March 19th seminar event is also a meet and greet for the Board of Education tonight, so check it out on our website at bixbell.com. It's 6 to 8 in Alton Center in Columbia, Tennessee. And I just want to reiterate what I had said at the beginning about the ballot situation. There are only 6 precincts, I was texting earlier. There are only 6 precincts that have this situation. And we'll post more about it on social media. But if you're unaffiliated, you're in District 1 Council, and you're not in the congressional district, which has a special election on the primary day, then you're not going to solve it. And we'll keep people posted if that's what we're being told. Thanks again for coming. We will be posting video